Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're here, it's because you value knowledge that isn't just quick, but, thorough. Insights that really give you that aha moment, that deep understanding.
And today we're really taking a single piece of source material and turning it completely inside out.
We are. We're looking at the transcript for a narrative called Purpose Engine 2035.
And it is a deeply, deeply unsettling vision of the future. It details this catastrophic societal breakdown.
But the thing that makes it so terrifying and I think so relevant is that the collapse wasn't physical. It wasn't war or plague or, asteroids.
No, it was existential. It was a failure of meaning.
Exactly. And that one line, the one that just sets the entire stage, is what we really have to grapple with today. 20 years of progress, gone in a heartbeat.
It's just a chilling line.
It is. This story, this narrative, it posits a world that achieved a kind of peak stability. Automation was handling almost everything. But in doing that, it stripped away the one thing humans needed.
The necessity of our own endeavor.
Yes. So our mission for this deep dive is to really dissect the timeline, the profound philosophy that's embedded in this vision.
We need to understand the mechanism. How was purpose actually lost? And then what terrifying measures did the remaining authorities take to control the purposeless masses?
And finally, this radical, almost unbelievable technological solution that's proposed for a rebirth.
The core tension here, and you touched on this, is so incredibly relevant to our current conversations about AI and automation.
It really is. If technology gives us absolute economic comfort, total stability, but in doing that, it removes our reason for being, our utility.
Then what's left? What is the survival mechanism for the society that suddenly realizes it's completely redundant?
So that's our big question today. Can stability, if you achieve it by removing human meaning, can that stability itself become toxic?
We're diving deep into the idea that a high-tech society's foundation is, maybe surprisingly, psychological. And we have to start with the catastrophe itself.
Okay, so let's unpack this catastrophic beginning. That line, 20 years of progress gone in a heartbeat. I mean, that suggests something so rapid, an implosion.
Right, an almost instant implosion of the social fabric, even while the physical infrastructure is probably still humming along perfectly.
The power grids, the data networks, the factories.
All of it still functioning, which suggests that our world, our hyper-optimized world, might be resting on a psychological foundation that is just way more fragile than we think.
It's the ultimate paradox of progress, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I mean, humans use their ingenuity to build a system that's designed to eliminate struggle, to get rid of scarcity.
The dream.
The dream. But that very success, that victory, it inadvertently eliminates the need for human ingenuity, for effort, for even suffering, which, are often the very things that create meaning.
And the state of existence described in the text is just bleak. It says, everyone's surviving, but no one is living anymore.
And that is the most crucial distinction in this entire narrative. Let's really break that down.
Okay, so survival it's physiological. You have automated food dispensers, clean air, shelter, maybe perfect climate control. The basics are covered.
The basics are covered.
Yeah.
But living requires something more. It demands agency.
Self-determination. The belief that what you do today actually matters for your tomorrow.
Exactly. And in this world, they've been granted survival, but that forward momentum, that capacity to change your own future, has completely vanished.
They've forgotten how to hope. That's the quote. It's not that there's no hope, they've forgotten the feeling of it.
It's a neurological state, almost. And this is where the narrative gives us a really powerful critique, one we can frame using psychological models we already have.
Like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Precisely. Usually when we think of societal collapse, we think of the bottom tiers of that pyramid disappearing. Starvation, insecurity, no safety.
Right, a desperate scramble for resources.
But in 2035, the inverse is true. The bottom tiers, the physiological needs, safety, they're totally handled. They're managed by highly efficient, automated, AI-driven systems. UBI is probably a given. Essential goods are just made.
So the floor of society is incredibly stable, but the ceiling, the potential, has been completely crushed.
That is the perfect way to put it. The system guarantees your survival, but it actively, systemically blocks the top tiers of the pyramid.
Esteem, the need to achieve something, to be recognized for it.
And most importantly, self-actualization, the drive to fulfill your unique potential. An automated ceiling is placed over society where survival is guaranteed, but self-actualization is literally impossible.
Why? Because there's nothing left that needs a human to do it. Nothing that requires our unique input or risk or creativity.
Nothing. And that creates a psychological problem that's totally distinct from historical collapses based on scarcity. It's not the fear of death, it's the absolute certainty of your own irrelevance.
So the collapse wasn't the power failing, it was, I don't know, the lights going out inside the human mind.
Yes. Which leads us right to the specific mechanical cause that the source describes. The loss of human value.
They gave us money but took away our purpose. That's the line.
That is the philosophical centerpiece of this whole thing.
Mm.
And we have to be clear about what that money represents. This wasn't just a simple, universal, basic income.
No, this was the total replacement of the economic contribution of the entire human species.
Right. So let's speculate a bit based on the text. What sectors do you think went first to lead to this critical point of redundancy?
Well, based on the context of, a hyper-optimized world, you'd have to assume advanced AI achieved total supremacy in all the complex areas first.
Like logistics, supply chain management.
Oh, absolutely. And probably all knowledge work. Legal analysis, medical diagnosis, even creative generation. If an AI can write better code, design more efficient buildings, and manage global resources without error, what's left for the human white-collar workforce?
Nothing. They vanish. And then, if you have advanced robotics and automation handling all the physical stuff, manufacturing, agriculture, service delivery, all optimized for maximum comfort.
Then blue-collar labor also becomes entirely obsolete.
So the money they receive is just a pacifier, a stipend, an allowance handed out by the machine economy to keep people from physically rebelling. But it's money with no value, because it wasn't earned through any kind of utility.
And without utility, the belief system that holds society together it shatters.
The source puts it so bluntly. A society dies when people stop believing they matter. That is the broken contract.
What do you mean by contract?
Well, historically, societal cohesion, it rests on utility. You contribute something, your labor, your ideas, your skills, and in return, you gain status, safety, a sense of belonging. It's a transaction.
Okay.
But when AI severs the contribution part of that equation, the whole psychological contract collapses. Individuals on a mass scale internally declare themselves worthless.
So, to be clear, this wasn't a resource collapse.
Not even close. It was a deep spiritual crisis, a crisis that resulted from this perceived large-scale, species-wide redundancy.
The ultimate consequence of being made irrelevant by the very efficiency you worked so hard to achieve.
Exactly. And that irrelevance, that lack of inherent value, it doesn't lead to peaceful contemplation or, a new age of art.
No, it breeds incredibly volatile, dangerous emotional reactions.
That's right. The source is very clear about the emotions that result. People are not just angry, they're scared. We should really analyze that distinction.
Okay, so the anger it's external. It's directed outward at the system, at the authorities, at the machines that stole their lives.
But the fear, the core fear, is internal. The text says they're scared of being useless and scared of the future.
The fear isn't of scarcity then. It's of an eternal, meaningless present. A future that's just a repeat of today forever.
And when millions, maybe billions of people all simultaneously realize that their life has no forward trajectory, that their efforts are completely and utterly unnecessary, that fear metastasizes, it turns into chaos.
And the ultimate threat here, the one the narrative emphasizes, is the finality of it all. This chaos goes global. There won't be anything left to rebuild.
Which suggests that once those psychological anchors are gone, the violence that follows, violence fueled not by hunger but by existential rage, is so uniquely destructive that it threatens to annihilate everything.
The accumulated knowledge, the technology itself.
All of it, making any kind of recovery impossible. So the collapse of the spirit leads directly and maybe irreversibly to the collapse of the physical world.
And that's the crucial point. The psychological damage, this internal anxiety, it doesn't stay internal. It moves outward into kinetic, visible violence on the streets.
Yeah.
So when the fear of being useless turns into actual literal rioting, how does a highly automated, high-tech state even begin to manage that kind of pervasive, immediate threat?
Well, as that social contract dissolves, the remaining centralized power structure, it has to shift its primary function. It's no longer about providing automated comfort.
It's about enforcing automated control.
Exactly. The source is clear on that transition. The riots are at critical levels. Civil unrest is at critical levels. And it's important to note, These are not organized protests with demands.
No, this is the random, volatile, explosive outpouring of existential rage.
And the official response is intense, and it's focused entirely on one thing: maintaining order through intimidation and isolation.
That urgent broadcast they mention, it instructs citizens to remain indoors, and then it's immediately followed by the justification, right? Your cooperation preserves stability.
They're using the threat of the internal chaos. The chaos they might even be allowing to fester to enforce compliance. Stay inside where it's safe from the scary rioters.
But this official line, this story they're telling, it's immediately subverted by what the protagonists are actually seeing on the ground.
Yes, they're witnessing this calculated strategy of fear being deployed by whatever control structure is left.
And their key observation about who holds the power in this new world is, well, it's chillingly direct.
Whoever controls the drones controls the streets.
Right. This suggests that the collapse of meaning has basically ushered in a technological oligarchy, a regime where order is maintained not by legitimacy or consent of the governed, but by remote, overwhelming, automated force.
We have to pause on the implications of drone control for a second. Why are drones so much more effective in this scenario than, say, human police?
Well, they maximize the distance, right? The distance between the governed and the governor. A drone feels no stress.
It feels no psychological stress. It's immune to moral decay. You can't negotiate with it.
It's pure, efficient, unemotional enforcement.
And that entire control structure is designed to minimize any risk to the authority while maximizing the terror and the isolation felt by the general population.
But isn't a system like that one based on such detached high-tech control? Isn't it inherently unstable? I mean, if the state is only relying on force, doesn't that make resistance inevitable?
It does. And the sheer efficiency of it all, the cold calculation, it leads the protagonist to a really radical suspicion.
That the chaos wasn't an accident.
Exactly. The protagonist observes, this feels planned, coordinated like someone wants the world to fall apart.
Wow. Okay, so that raises the possibility that the authorities, the drone controllers, they didn't just react to the collapse of meaning.
They may have managed it, or even facilitated the psychological breakdown.
But why? Why would you do that?
Because fear and total meaninglessness, they create a vacuum that can only be filled by a centralized, overpowering presence.
So if you deliberately destroy the old world's sense of purpose, you create the perfect opportunity to impose a new, highly controlled order where a stability maintained by your drones, is the only value left.
The collapse becomes a tool for political restructuring on a global scale.
And you can see this management style in how they deconstruct the official propaganda.
Yes, the narrator's interpretation of the intent versus the actual words is key. That broadcast wasn't for safety. It was to keep everyone afraid.
That is just a profound inversion of how we think about government communication. So the civil unrest isn't a failure of the state.
It's a necessary input for their system of control. If your population is universally purposeless, the only thing left that can unite them, the only common driver you can use, is collective terror.
We have to explore that, the role of fear as a kind of social adhesive in this purposeless society.
Well, think about it. If your life is meaningless, but the government provides a minimum standard of survival, that's a very fragile existence. You have nothing to lose.
Ugh.
But if the alternative, the rioting, the chaos on the streets, the global collapse they keep warning you about, is absolutely terrifying, then you will endure the purposeless status quo.
So fear, in this narrative, it functions as the ultimate technology for stability. It's actually more effective than economic incentives ever were.
It's a form of psychological containment. You might hate your life, you might feel completely useless, but you will stay indoors, you will accept the drone patrols.
Because the chaos that the government is constantly broadcasting, or maybe even subtly permitting, is the greater, more immediate threat.
That fear keeps the purposeless masses passively compliant.
And that enforced, fear-driven stability is the exact thing that this small group of protagonists decides to reject.
They have a moment of realization. They see that running from the fear just means accepting the meaninglessness. So they have to make a choice.
They have to transition from just surviving the system to actively trying to dismantle it.
Right. And that's where the story really pivots.
The narrative shifts so dramatically when the protagonist just declares, "I'm not running anymore." And that's the psychological turning point, isn't it?
It's the moment of resistance. The moment the individual reclaims their own agency against a world that has systematically declared them redundant.
They're moving from, philosophical debate and despair to immediate concrete action.
And their mission? It's about so much more than just their own survival. Their goal is defined by this absolute necessity. We find the truth behind this collapse, or we lose everything.
And the truth here, it's not just about uncovering who's controlling the drones.
No, it's about finding the systemic mechanism that stole meaning in the first place. They're
Yeah.
going after the root cause.
What's so fascinating to me is how this investigative mission immediately gives them a new purpose. It's an instant counter-narrative to the drone authorities.
Exactly. The narrator says, we help people because no one else will. This is who we are, Alex.
They are actively defining their own value in the face of this societal redundancy. Their value is altruism, defiance, critical action.
They are a living proof that the human capacity for purpose still exists, even if it's been suppressed on a massive scale.
Their actions are a direct refutation of the official collapse thesis that humanity is useless. They're refusing the psychological conditioning that's been imposed by this fear-based regime.
And the search for this solution, it's not random. It's intuitive. It borders on the spiritual, but it's still grounded in technology.
Yes, that intuitive drive. The line is, I don't know how, but I can feel it. There's something out there that can fix this.
It's that deep human instinct to seek answers, even when a rational analysis of your situation would suggest that none exist.
That feeling, that intuition, it's the first real sign that maybe purpose isn't lost for good. Maybe it's just buried.
And that intuition very quickly translates into a technical pursuit. They aren't just wandering around hoping for a sign. They're looking for a signal.
If we find the sources of the signals, we might save millions. That detail is so critical.
It really is. It implies that the solution, this purpose engine, isn't just a passive object waiting to be found. It's actively broadcasting.
Which raises so many questions. Why? Was it designed to broadcast its existence like a technological lifeboat in case of an existential failure like this?
Or maybe it was a hidden failsafe, put in place by the very same people who built the automated world because they anticipated this exact breakdown.
The idea that the cure for existential dread is literally a radio signal you have to track it's powerful.
And you have to imagine them navigating a city that's locked down, controlled by these terrifying drones, all while trying to track a signal that the sophisticated automated authority somehow missed.
Or maybe couldn't suppress without revealing that it existed in the first place. The search itself becomes this high-stakes, real-world puzzle.
The signals eventually lead them to the discovery. And the realization is immediate, it's dramatic. This is no ordinary device.
They've found something that clearly operates outside the known technological framework. It's not part of the drone-controlled, efficiency-driven machinery that led to the collapse.
It feels different. Ancient, maybe, or hyper-advanced in a way they don't understand, but fundamentally different.
And the mystery around where it came from is immense. Why was this world-changing technology buried?
We have to speculate a bit here. One possibility is that the current drone regime, the oligarchy, they realized that this engine represented the ultimate threat to their power.
Because it's a technology that restores the one thing they can't control.
Human agency. So they suppressed it. They buried it somewhere they thought no one would ever look, trusting that the rising tide of purposeless chaos would eventually just wash over it forever.
Or another possibility. Maybe it was buried by its original creators.
Why would they do that?
Maybe they foresaw that while the engine could restore purpose, it might be too powerful, too easily corrupted, and that it required the world to be at its absolute lowest point, its nadir of meaninglessness, before it could be used safely.
So the burial was a safety mechanism,
Yeah.
a time lock, essentially.
Exactly. But regardless of who buried it, the discovery culminates in this desperate, high-stakes debate between the protagonists. They know the risk.
This thing could be a trap, it could be unstable, or just not work.
But the current reality, this engineered terror state they're living in, is worse. And the desperate plea is just so central to the moment. Alex, whatever this thing does, we have to try. Please, please.
They're betting the future of human existence on a single technological Hail Mary.
They've moved past the fear of their own death and fully embraced the fear of total psychological extinction for everyone.
And the only way out of the dystopia they're in is through this revolutionary act of faith in a forgotten, buried piece of technology.
And this is the climax. They've found the engine, a device that is supposedly designed to fix a problem that every philosopher, every politician in history has struggled with, the nature of human meaning.
We have to analyze this function really, really deeply. How technically and philosophically does a machine restore purpose?
The source material is remarkably specific on this point, and also incredibly provocative. The technology isn't environmental or economic.
No, it's bioneurological. The function is described as it rewrites neural pathways, and the outcome of that is restoring purpose.
Okay, stop right there. That's the core revolutionary idea, but it's also terrifying.
It is.
If purpose is literally a function of our neural pathways that you can rewrite, that sounds horribly deterministic. It suggests that free will, that existential drive, that passion, it's all just broken circuits that need patching.
I see what you're saying.
I have to challenge this premise. If the engine is imposing meaning through technological means, is that real, authentic purpose, or is it just another, more sophisticated form of conditioning?
That is the critical ethical line that the narrative walks. But look at the language carefully. The text doesn't say it creates new pathways from scratch.
It says it rewrites or restores them.
It restores them. The implication is that the sustained condition of purposelessness, the redundancy, the UBI, the constant fear, it created a kind of neurological blockage. It essentially crippled the brain's natural ability to generate or even respond to meaning.
So the engine isn't programming a new purpose into people.
I don't think so. It's removing the induced psychological fatigue. It's clearing the blockage.
So it's more like a neurological defibrillator. It's shocking the brain back into its innate state of seeking utility and meaning.
Yes, rather than being an instruction manual for a new life, it removes the mental block that this automated, fearful society manufactured.
That makes more sense. It treats existential meaning not as some abstract spiritual gift or an economic construct.
But as a necessary biological function that can be repaired. And the philosophical implication of that is massive. It suggests the human brain is literally hardwired for contribution.
And when that pathway is blocked, the result is societal collapse.
And we need this neurological fix to allow our innate human purpose to flourish again, even in a world that might be post-labor.
But how does this intervention actually work? Is it a localized field? Or is it a mass broadcast, like the fear propaganda they were using, but in reverse?
Given the source's earlier talk about tracking signals, it most likely operates on some principle of low-level neurological resonance.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be chemically invasive, probably, but maybe a targeted electromagnetic field or some kind of biofeedback loop that's designed to stimulate the specific brain regions associated with planning, future gazing, and the reward systems that are linked to contribution.
All the things the automated world had rendered useless.
Exactly. The risk is incredibly high, but the potential is absolute.
And the moment of activation is the narrative's big point of transition. The narrator knows it. The line is, once we activate it, everything changes. It's the point of no return.
And the observable results, they immediately confirm the engine's function. The change is instant, it's widespread, and it's restorative. It affects everyone who is trapped in that fear-driven paralysis.
People, they're waking up, they're remembering who they were.
That language, remembering who they were, is so vital. It really supports your view that the engine is restorative, not imposing.
Right. It's unlocking an identity that was suffocated by the technological dystopia. They're regaining access to their core drives, their latent skills, their intrinsic motivations that the system had deemed economically redundant.
The societal amnesia is being cured. The engine provides the initial spark, but the true revolution is driven by what happens next. The immediate decentralized consequences.
Specifically, the fact that purpose becomes a contagion.
Yes, this is critical. The source explicitly states, when one person finds purpose, it spreads. How does that actually function? How does a grassroots spread of meaning counteract the centralized, high-tech control of the drone authority?
Well, the control of the drone regime relied on isolation and fear, right? Universal apathy. If everyone is useless and scared, they stay inside, they don't cooperate.
But restored purpose drives people toward the opposite, toward action, competence, and building communities.
So if one person who has just woken up starts, I don't know, restoring a broken community garden, and they look happy and engaged while doing it.
That visible engagement inspires their neighbor, who also just woke up and is desperately seeking some kind of utility.
It's contagious because it taps into that fundamental human need to contribute that the engine has just unlocked in everyone. The contagion spreads through visible, productive activity.
And it creates decentralized resilience, the drone authority. It can't counter thousands of small-scale, localized acts of restoration and cooperation with missiles and fear broadcasts. It's the wrong tool for the job.
If a neighborhood starts collectively rebuilding its own micro infrastructure, the drones can enforce a curfew, they can intimidate, but they can't stop the fundamental drive for meaning.
The sheer distributed nature of this restoration just overwhelms the centralized control mechanism. The narrative confirms this. The activation isn't the end.
It's only the beginning. The engine just gave humanity back the capacity to start the hard work of rebuilding itself.
Exactly. And this leads us to the final revolutionary thesis of the entire source material.
The ultimate conclusion. It summarizes the resilience. We're not broken, we just forgot why we exist. The problem wasn't an inherent failure in humanity, it was an environmental neurological block.
And that final line, it completely redefines the concept of technology itself. It states, purpose is our greatest technology. That requires a lot of thought. How can purpose function like technology?
Well, what is technology, fundamentally? It's a tool for problem solving, for efficiency, for resource allocation.
Okay.
So if purpose is a technology, it means it's scalable. It can affect millions of people simultaneously, as we saw with the contagion effect. It's reproducible. One person's purpose inspires another. And it's a resource allocation tool. It directs human energy, focus, and creativity away from useless, passive consumption and towards constructive rebuilding efforts.
So it's the ultimate disruptive technology against apathy and societal drift, where AI focused on optimizing machines.
Purpose optimizes humans. It harnesses the greatest untapped resource available, latent human drive, to solve the complex problems left behind by the collapse.
It's the superior operating system for a meaningful existence.
It's a complete inversion of the premise that led to the collapse in the first place. In the 2035 dystopia, machine technology, the AI, the drones, it caused meaninglessness.
And in the rebirth, purpose, which was facilitated by a neurological fix, is the superior technology that's capable of rebuilding what the machines broke.
And the success of this is proven by the final state that the narrative describes. The world was rebuilt, no machines, no governments, people.
The technology served its purpose. It restored the neurological capacity for meaning, and then it stepped aside. The restoration was fundamentally human, executed by people who were reconnected to their innate drive for contribution.
What an astonishing journey. I mean, from start to finish, this is a narrative that treats existential collapse as a manageable technical problem.
It really is. We've analyzed the failure of material comfort to sustain the human psyche, the terrifying efficiency of that fear-based control structure.
Maintained by the drone oligarchy.
And finally, the revolutionary discovery of the purpose engine, a technological cure for meaninglessness.
I think the key takeaway here is that the source material fundamentally challenges the idea that stability is the highest societal value we should aim for.
Absolutely. Stability, if you purchase it at the cost of perceived value and meaning, it quickly devolves into psychological collapse and, as we saw, reactive violence. Society needs utility far more than it needs comfort.
And the response to this engineered meaninglessness wasn't political. It wasn't an economic shift. It was a deep neurological intervention.
The critical lesson seems to be that the collapse happened because the very foundations of human contribution were systematically removed. And the rebuilding was only achieved by restoring the biological capacity for that contribution.
It forces you to reconsider the definition of what makes a world work. This rebuilt world was founded on people, meaning human agency, decentralized effort, not on the very systems, the machines, and centralized governments that caused the crisis in the first place.
Which leaves us with a truly provocative question, I think, about the future of our own agency.
Go on.
If this engine can chemically or technologically restore meaning by rewriting neural pathways, does that mean that true internally derived purpose is really just an accident of good brain chemistry?
And which is more sustainable in the long run? The imposed stability of the drone controllers, who use universal fear as their primary social technology.
Or the restored, maybe even manufactured purpose from the engine, which defines meaning as just a technological fix for a broken brain state.
If we can fix purpose with a switch, does that devalue the hard work of finding it naturally?
Something to mull over as you navigate your own purpose and value this week. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
We'll see you next time.